Well, welcome in. We'll kind of let everybody trickle in here, but welcome into another IT Leadership Lab live stream. We have a really great one today talking about the CIO journey, navigating the executive path. And I brought in kind of an expert in the field here, Tony Darden. So welcome in. And Tony, I wanted to kind of kick things off and just ask a little bit about yourself and your journey in IT and a little bit about what you're doing now with vCIO Global.
Sure, and thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite. Always a topic I enjoy speaking on. But yeah, so I mean, if I really rewind the clock, it started in fifth grade. I was introduced to the Apple IIe, dating myself a little bit, but it was my science teacher's passion. It quickly became my passion after he exposed us to that. So I knew very early that this was a industry or an area that I wanted to focus on. And then when so I went to college for MIS, and my first job was an application developer for a local family-owned food distribution business in Erie, Pennsylvania. And that was 18 years of my career. I was firmly in application development, but in observing the business and working with the different stakeholders, I came up that there might be some products that we can design, develop, and market to other food service distribution companies. So owners were behind it, or at least offered their support. So created a company called Sales Pro Technologies, and that's what I did for many years after that, which is interesting because now I'm part marketer, part salesperson, part application developer. But it exposed me to areas outside of, I'll say, IT proper. That helped
Mm-hmm.
get me to where I was today. But after that candle burned out, I went into global manufacturing. Spent 12 years with as a CIO with that organization through a variety of different initiatives. But that was the first real big shift from just being your typical IT person and getting to see a lot more of the business side and getting to travel. And it was a great experience. And now I'm with vCIO Global. I'm a partner with that organization, and we're a fractional CIO organization. So we are the I'll say the part-time CIO for companies that don't have one, feel they can't afford one. I can argue that you always should be able to have one. But that's our space now, small and mid-sized businesses. I've been doing that for the last 2 years.
Sweet. Well, yeah, that's awesome. I remember when we were first kind of launching the Leadership Lab, and I was looking for content. I saw uh, a lot of what you do, especially with like CIO Lifeline and things like that. So, how did you kind of get into the content creation side of things?
It was a great question. So it started with my frustration. I tend to be sticky when I'm with organizations. Like my first career was 18 years, my second was 12. Here I am in my third. So now dealt with a lot of different businesses over the years, but I was always grounded in
Mm-hmm.
organizations. But my frustrations ultimately led to those departures, and it kind of landed me where I was today. So when it comes to content creation, it became a vessel. And I think I speak for a lot of IT folks where you belong at the table. You earned your seat at the table. Shouldn't be the CEO and the CFO and the COO. The CIO, that starts with a C, should be at the same meetings, at the same strategy sessions, and that's still a battle that a lot of folks go to. Organizations will say how important IT is, but usually you're given a direction or you're asked for your inputs, but you're not truly there facilitating and helping the guide. And that was the genesis of CIO Lifeline. Now we like to have fun too. So we do find it entertaining on some level, but we bring other IT leaders and companies on the show, and we just have conversations about IT in general.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. It's really, really great content. I'll have to find the link and drop it in the chat whenever I get a second. But yeah, it's a really, really great resource for anybody that's looking to grow into becoming a CIO or is a CIO and is just looking to up their game up a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, I was curious specifically about your journey, specifically getting into that CIO role from doing that IT work. Um, what were some of those pivotal moments along the way, and how did that transition actually go into becoming a CIO?
Yeah, so starting out as a dev, when I remember, I mean, I was in my 20s, and I just remember how cool or neat, I don't know what the right word is, but to walk into the organization, you're seeing employees use the application you designed. That felt fulfilling, and I realized it was more than just taking orders or developing a program and letting someone else do it. I actually enjoyed the collaborative nature of application design. There's a difference between hearing a request, but then translating it into what exactly are they asking for. So
Mhm,
that kind of turned on another passion area, as how I wanted to get more involved. But what I quickly found out was, I need to understand business in general, not just IT. Like I felt like I was an expert in IT, but where I was a novice, was in understanding other areas of the business. I couldn't speak their language. So
mhm,
when someone asks you for, a warehouse support application or a report to show XYZ for said function, where I started to get some credibility with the businesses I worked for is when I started to walk in their shoes. A couple, I've done a few of these, but one in particular was creating a picking application off of handheld devices. It wasn't until I worked the night shift with them that I got that credibility to be
mhm.
engaged with them. It's one thing
Yeah.
that's super important when it comes to getting adoption and being a change agent, and that's a hat you wear in IT. It's getting that buy-in, that credibility. Change management is a killer to projects, but if you can master that the best you can, your chances of success exponentially increase. So I had to learn
Mhm,
basic accounting, I had to learn operations, I had to learn supply chain. It not only made you a better developer in that particular chapter of my life, but now you became a business stakeholder. You weren't just the IT person. You
mhm.
were a business person. So I gravitated that more and more, and it helped shape where I was today because now I became someone who can actively work on a solution or a strategy for said organization,
Mm.
because they understood as we got engaging in conversation, like, oh, okay, so you know that part of the business or you know that concept generally speaking, and not throwing out acronyms and talking over their head. That was always a challenge in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, Nate actually asked something kind of along those lines. What's your method for helping C-suite recognize IT's business value?
Yeah, it in order for you to even get there, they have to believe and feel, understand that you are a business stakeholder. You're a
Mm,
peer
mhm,
to them. Now, that might be extreme. If you're not at that senior IT level yet, that might be an extreme, but that's the mindset you want. So there's a lot of, I feel like, legwork a lot of seeds to plant.
mm, mhm,
One, do you have purposeful engagement with your leadership team? Just a check-in. It could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour. Are you going out of your way to engage with those individuals? Just about business in general. I'm sure you're always getting requests from folks in leadership about a task. are you able to engage with them to understand that task a little more deeply? And can you speak to it in their language? One thing,
Mm.
a hard lesson I had in the past was just talking over people's heads, you know. So
Yeah.
you got to be able to read the room. Are their eyes glazing over the longer you go? Are they checking their phone? That's always a tell. Are they
Yeah.
glancing at their watch? You know what I mean? Like, you know, when someone's disengaging from you.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to pivot quickly. Otherwise, you've lost them. But that takes time. Having that
Mm.
purposeful engagement with your leadership team so they see you as a colleague and not as a task taker. Because
Mm.
once you reach that level, oh, now the magic starts to unfold. They're not going to think twice about bringing you into the conversation because you understand their language and you're not. And just cut me off anytime. I can ramble on this topic forever.
No, no, you're
But
totally fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
like shiny new toy syndrome. I was that
Yeah.
guy. This cool new tech comes out. Holy shit, we got to make sure that we
Yeah.
use this for some reason.
Mhm.
Well, so but what's the ROI? What's the, there's some boring questions that come out. It's like, I don't care about the ROI. I care about how cool this looks.
Yep.
So it's being able to take an idea or a concept and be able to articulate how you're going to approach it,
Mhm.
but showing some concept of ROI. This might cost us $50,000, but based on my meetings that I've had with your team, Mr. or Mrs. CEO, um, this is a pain point that they have that this solution will address, and we're going to save them X amount of time, blah, blah, blah. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the buy-in you get at that point is just, you're going to, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's really, really great feedback. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about the beginning part of your journey, kind of go back to that a little bit, especially because we have a lot of people in the lab that are new to leadership and are trying to kind of get their feet on the ground and really understand how they can propel themselves. And so I was curious about if there was a specific project or opportunity that maybe helped grow your leadership skills and might help others do the same.
The best lessons I've had in life was when I got punched in the face. Mike Tyson, I love his quote. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Because if you haven't failed, you're not growing. It's and the first time you fail becomes harder to digest. So I love to say fail often, but learn from that. Um, Try not to repeat it. The and I still feel bad about this, and it's been 30 years. Where I had, back to my first career when I was sales pro technologies. I was trying to figure out, how do I market this, sell it. I needed an employee to help me in this journey. Well, the person that came on the team would always have a bunch of questions, and it involved different functional areas. And I thought that, okay, I will save you time and I'll go get the answer for you. So she would pose a question. I'd go off to the department and come back. I remember at a happy hour, this is several months later, so we're having some drinks, your inhibitions are down a little bit. And she's like, how come I can't just go over and work with them? So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a light bulb moment. Instantly felt bad. I still feel bad 30 years later. It's like, oh my God, like, why would I? Of course, so it's, you want to share your wins. And I
Mhm.
always say, take your loss, take the responsibilities. Like, so when there's a big win for the team, I'm praising the team. It's never me. I don't care if it was my idea and I did 5% of the work. I
Yeah.
this is a team effort. And if something goes sideways, you're the head coach. You take that responsibility, and you're demonstrating that to the team you have their back, but
Mhm.
you're also inclusive and not self-serving. So
Mhm.
one thing that's so important is, I like to say, and a mentor of mine has told me this many times over, you want to hire the best people and then get the hell out of their way. And if you're the smartest person in the room during these team meetings, shame on you, especially if you're the one responsible for those that are around the table. You want to
Mhm.
have the best possible team you can, and don't micromanage them. Let their wings spread, and you'll be amazed the power that comes out of that because you're
Mhm.
stronger together, no doubt.
Yeah. Nate actually had a follow-up question to one of the earlier things that we discussed. How do you navigate politics, biases, and hidden agendas when it's coming from senior leadership
And
and you
that
can't
is
push back too hard?
every company. It's every company.
Yeah.
Can't escape it. If it's family owned company and you don't have a drop of that family blood, it's that times 80.
Yeah.
It's one thing that you'll never escape in any business. And some are okay with it and they're just politicians by nature, or they learn to play the game, but there's always the game. Couple tips. Know who your squeaky wheels are.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean squeaky wheels of the leadership. That means employees who report to said leadership. If you know who the squeaky wheels are and can cater to them reasonably, right? Let's say you're responsible for your support desk. I
Mhm.
always make sure that there's two groups. Now you name them right, so that's not you know that obvious, but I always have a VIP group. That's your senior leaders. I don't care what CEO or leader tells you, hey, if they need batteries for their mouse, they'll say, look, this is, or they need a new mouse. Their current one works fine, but they need a new one. Like, look, I know there's a ton of other priorities. Just when you get to it, next time you order, can you get me a new mouse? Don't fall for that trap. You get them a new mouse immediately. It just demonstrates that you respect that they're in the role that they're in. I've
Mhm.
fallen victim to this a billion times over. It's not going to happen a billion and one.
Mhm.
Know
Mhm.
the leaders, know they recognize their importance. They're running a business, and if they're active 100% of the time, and a better mouse is going to make them more proficient, you should applaud that because so that's point one. Point two is no, and so the other list I would have is the squeaky wheel list. Now, again, name it appropriately, because those are the folks that if there's an issue or there's something that comes up that is bothering them and you demonstrate attention to them, that's going to serve you well. It might be a pain in
Mhm.
the ass and you want to walk the other way when you see them in the hallway. I promise you, there's a lot of gossip that comes out of that individual. And you want to make sure that, you're
Mhm.
playing politics.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of that kind of interpersonal relationships that come with leadership that um it's hard to train and hard to know until you're actually in that role and having to have those kinds of conversations. So,
Yeah, and if anybody hasn't seen the movie Inception, um,
mhm.
please please watch that. I think that's the key to IT success as a leader because you
Really?
want, oh yeah, because you want when you can. I mean, we're speaking in generalities here, but
Yeah.
if there's an idea, remember, getting that buy-in is important because unless you own the company, you're beholden to the purse strings and the budgets and getting sign off. But there
Mhm.
are some personality types out there that if you can somehow walk them into and it's now their idea, oh, all the better. And it's not, I told you so. It's not, well, that's what I was trying to tell you 3 months ago. You don't want to go down that game. Like, no ego in this. No ego in this. So ideas are great to share and you got to get their buy-in, but if they're resisting or they're hesitating or they're just not seeing it, um,
Mhm.
at some point if you can get them to realize it and now it's somehow their idea, another political win for you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so whenever you kind of went from that technical role to the strategic leadership position where you have to have these kinds of conversations, how did your perspective on technology and business change? And how important did those business um, topics kind of become, your priority? And how
Yeah, it's
different was your approach with technology then too?
sure. I mean, geek speak had to take a back seat, for sure. I had to
Sure.
get out of my comfort zone. ROI matters. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
Um, Shiny new toy syndrome. So don't fall in love with ideas. You will crash, and
Mm,
you might be right, but right doesn't always win, and that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. And it's how you accept it. Can you accept loss or accept no's with grace? It's also something that your C-suite is being mindful of is how do you
mhm,
take rejection? How do you take a failure? Do you own the failure? You know, another and you got to know when to walk away from something. Like a project like if if you've been approved $50,000 for a project and that 50 that's a lot of money. Now, some organizations 50,000 is 500,000, right? It's all perspective. But there's a number that's deemed a lot of money. You know, and you're in the project and it's just not working. Um, Human nature says we got to eke this out 3 more months and just got to find money and just we're going to power through it. There's bravery in saying, you know what, we made the wrong decision. We're not going to throw good money after bad, and it's time to pivot. Now,
mhm,
that's hard to admit, but back to the rest of your C-suite. If they're a good leader, they understand. I mean, that's going to be an excellent feather in your cap. You
mhm,
know when to pivot. Also, you got to be able to share bad news, um, and not always share bad news with an answer on how you're going to remediate it. Because all that does is delay the bad news.
mhm.
You got to be able to own it, and you got to be comfortable with I don't know. I don't know, but I will find the answer.
Mhm.
You can't be expected to know everything, even if that person thinks you know everything. You got
Yeah,
to be able
yeah.
to own it. So the other part was in getting to that CIO level, the majority focus is on areas outside of IT. In fact, one of the best
Mhm,
CIOs I know never was in IT. This is
mhm,
a business role. How you translate to the tech side that backs up the initiative, of course, that
mhm,
experience helps you. But successful CIOs are business minded individuals and know
mhm.
how to get the right team around them to do the tactical work, of which you may play a part of. But yeah, your majority focus. If you aspire to be a CIO and are not comfortable with the majority focus being in business matters, not IT matters, I caution your aspirations.
Mhm. How do you keep up with technical expertise, at least somewhat? Because I mean, you have these big business decisions to make, and you're in that room, you're probably the go-to person that's talking about all of these technical products and things like that. How do you keep that skill sharp while also focusing on those business skills?
Yeah. So I chuckle because this is another thing. Like I'm going to argue, right or wrong, that IT folks have to work harder than any other business function to get that level of respect and that
Sure.
recognition. I
Yeah.
was chuckling because I've been in boardroom meetings where someone's internet or Wi-Fi adapter doesn't work, and they're looking at you. It's like,
They look at you and you're
like, all right, so the air conditioning's not working. Am I going to look at the COO and go, "What the hell?" It's just
yeah.
it's just that reflexive nature of folks, and you
Interesting.
gotta,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So you gotta handle it with grace. Again,
Mhm.
we're working hard.
Yeah.
But anyway, to answer your question though, the you want to be tied into, in my opinion, you want to be part of a peer group and a user group tied to the systems that you use. Like we
Mhm.
tend to be Microsoft focused, and there's two main user groups in that community. You
Mhm.
have Dynamic
Okay.
Communities Inc. (DCI), and you have Dynamics User Group or DUG. Doug. And I'm actually on an advisory board for Doug, but that's purposeful because it keeps me in the know. And
Mhm.
so I'm going to these meetings, these Microsoft meetings, these Microsoft user groups. I'm talking with my peers. It's so easy to be in a bubble. And if one thing, you always have a list of 10 things in IT and you never get to them all, at least not efficiently. And as soon as you
Yeah.
exhaust, some of that list, more gets added on to it, especially with automation and AI. There's always something new that you have to focus on. And there's always a backlog. So you got to be purposeful about that user group participation. And when I say peer group, I'm not talking about Microsoft user group. I'm talking about a collective of folks that are in leadership roles like
Mhm.
yourself, whether it's a local manufacturing association. I belong to Renaissance Executive Forums, REF, and they are C suite peer groups around the country where you just be able to get together and collaborate because you need that safe space because you can't brain dump internally all the time. And at some point, your spouse or significant other just doesn't want to hear it or can't relate to it perfectly. So you need that outlet. And I'm also a big fan, if I can add a third, is having a mentor, someone you
Mhm.
can look to for guidance, for advice. Sometimes that's your vent path, but the bubble is real. It's lonely at the top, and you got to stay healthy mentally. Otherwise, you just go down a rabbit hole that doesn't go well.
Yeah. Um, Kind of on that note of things that you might struggle with either alone or with a group, what has been your toughest challenge? Managing your team or managing business stakeholders?
Business stakeholders by far.
Yeah.
Because if it's your
Yeah,
team, you have some level of control here, right? Unless it's a
sure.
family-owned business and there's sacred cows. I've inherited the son-in-law, and that's tough to repress. It's like, wait a minute, because you married into it, now you're my problem. I wouldn't
Yeah.
I wouldn't give you a mop job, and now you're on my team. So you got to be careful of that.
Mhm.
Back to the peer group, vent group. You got to channel that energy right. Um,
Mhm.
um, Repeat that again. I got quiet.
Toughest challenge managing your team or managing business stakeholders?
Yes,
And you
yes, yes,
said
yes. Yeah,
stakeholders.
because if it's your team, you do have a level of control there, right?
Yeah.
If great person, wrong seat, you're in control of that.
Yeah.
But managing the rest of the business stakeholders, that's tough
Mhm.
because you fall in and out of love. Sometimes things go south on a project. It's how you recoup.
Mhm.
Focus a lot of time on relationship building with them. We talked a little bit about that, right? Getting the CEO, the C suite's confidence in your ability to speak their language,
Mhm.
demonstrating prioritization of their needs and efforts. Um, but outside of that, there's a whole other layer of leadership groups, and they have their team
Mhm.
members. Relationship building is so important. It's not having a hallway pass conversation. Hey, how's it going? Good. What'd you do on Memorial Day? Huh? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's remembering their kids' names or their pets'
Mhm.
names or an event they went through in life. My son just made the basketball team. And 3 weeks later, hey, how's Jake doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's okay if you take notes. Like when I worked for that manufacturing company, I mean, you have 1,200 employees proper and you're responsible for different areas and business segments. I want to make sure that I'm being mindful of the people I interact with. So
Mhm.
I have to jot down their name and I have to jot down who their pet is. I'm not being disingenuous. I'm just your brain can only hold so much.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah. So that's what you want to be really mindful of because then when something goes sideways, they're not making such an event out of it. They're
Mhm.
picking up the phone and going, "Hey, Tony, hey, this look, I'm all for the system you did, but now it's 3 weeks later and we have another complaint about the coverage. Can you come out and take a look at that?"
Mhm.
Versus blasting this out in some way that's going to make you look, you know, bad, or escalate it to the higher ups, and now you're having the
Mhm.
conversation 4 different times.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that
I think it's a natural inclination to, once you build a relationship with someone, to reach out to them directly instead of needing
yeah.
to go through a bunch of different pathways. So,
Oh yeah. And you'll know it's working when you're not the last one to know. If
mhm,
they think you're an asshole, you'll be the last one to know, or
sure.
they'll go out of their way to avoid you.
Yeah.
But it has to be genuine too. Back to, you can't be fake and
Mhm.
have that hallway passing, I could care less conversation. I just see you and I have to say something. That's
Yeah.
what you want to avoid.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Jake had a really good question, specifically about managing up. Uh, he says, I'm in a spot where expectations are unclear and goalposts move. It isn't allowing team members to move up and it's hitting morale. What are some things I can do to guide our director into giving specific expectations of the team? Do I mention morale?
Uh yeah, so there's two parts to this. It's
Mhm.
you have your team to manage. You don't want an exodus, you don't want sour grapes, you don't want poison. Poison spreads much faster than anything else. So managing that part is a challenge. And then of course, those that move the goalpost on you. Now I'm hoping that um part of the goalpost moving is part of a weekly meeting cadence that you have with those individuals. It's not coming from the top and going through your boss and then it lands on you. Like there's a disconnect. Back to that earlier challenge of, you want to be at the table and have purposeful conversation, no surprises, we're transparent with each other. But if you're not there, then I use a tool, and there's lots of tools to use. I'm just telling you what works for me. Is I use a tool called Microsoft Planner, and Planner is like a Trello board. It's kind of old school sticky notes on a wall, where I'm engaging with my boss or the C-suite. It's like, okay, this is what we agreed is our priority list. Here's our top three, and then there's other columns. Like I always have like the to discuss, so that when we have our meetings, the topics are memorialized. And if they happen to engage in the planner concept, they're parking ideas. There's a sense of calm when something's safe on a list, because you'll get to it the next time you meet. It's not going to get lost. It'll help you organize your day. So I have my to discuss. Then I have my now column. That's the priority list. And then there's the next and soon. It's kind of basic future backlog. So anytime the goal posts move on me, I'll, in meeting with my C-suite, I go, okay, so here's what we talked about last week. Here's what we agreed to. And now you want to move this forward, which is fine, but we got to take something off the the now
Mhm.
list. So you're breaking it down simplistically. Now, if that causes frustration with your own team, it's like, oh, today's priority is blah blah blah. Yeah, that's a whole different navigation thread, because
Mhm.
if you have a C-suite that moves the goalposts all the time, then your team's ability to pivot and be okay with it is that now it speaks to leadership and getting them on board, because it doesn't
Mhm.
have to always be frustrating. If they're staring at the same planner board, it's like, we have no idea what to tackle next. Well, no, here's our list. Now the boss wants us to focus on this, and we're going to move this, you know to the to 2 weeks from now, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
I think that helps inject a sense of calm and not so much chaos, because that board is our universe. If
Mhm.
it's not on the board,
It's
it's
not
not in
being, yeah.
stone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that helps, but
No,
that
I think I think that's great. I mean, that's clear expectations with leadership. I think that's huge. And then, I live off of a to-do
Well,
list board myself.
yeah,
So
and the fact that the goalpost moved and you and your team have a tie to that, I think speaks to the importance of IT in general. I'd argue every company is a technology company. I don't care if you're a corner lawyer office or, you know, manufacturer of nuts and bolts. There
Mhm.
is tech in every corner of the organization. So the fact that a pivot involves your team speaks to the importance. So I wouldn't look at that as frustration. If you can get that organization and everybody wired, hey, that
Mhm.
we're pivot and we're nimbling. I mean, the fact that you're in IT, you're already there in one sense. I mean,
Yeah.
I loved Microsoft Copilot until the day they decided we're not going to do personas anymore. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. So now I'm going to go back to Chat GPT and have the security conversation there. Like
Yeah.
Microsoft
Yeah.
itself commands that you're able to pivot with grace.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, I also wanted to ask a question, kind of switching gears a little bit, from Neil. He says, I'm currently a mid-level manager. I have aspirations for becoming more, but I'm a very technical person. I am responsible for managing a small team, but also responsible for hitting targets for my field. I think I want to remain in a technical role, but also want to climb the corporate ladder. How can I decipher what to put focus into when I feel so split in what I need to spend my time in? I'm struggling with
Yeah.
timelines
So
being that I'm in such a split role.
great conversation, and that is common, especially with the lean mentality that goes into because what's hard for I'll say legacy leaders. What's hard is growing your team because for some you're a cost center, finance, HR, IT, you're cost centers. You're not providing value. You're just adding cost, which that's a trigger for me. IT provides value, especially these days with AI and automation. You're a value, not a cost center.
Mhm.
However, if you're a small team and the team is the team and you can't expand, you know, there's a personality trait that comes to mind. Are you someone who can let go, or are you truly, if you're not engaged with them, nothing gets done? So I put that out there as a self reflection point. But
Mhm.
I think there is an emphasis then on having if you only have two people on your team, are they the strongest, capable go getters? That because that's how you get some of that time back. It also minimizes the amount of rework that goes into it. Can your team also interpret the ask to the deliverable, which that's a big responsibility as an IT leader is being able to translate the wants from the needs and be able to blueprint it for when the work actually gets done. Um, but your team will need to have some of those traits if you're going to have any bandwidth available to you
Mhm.
to continue to
Mhm.
rise. Otherwise, you're committing yourself to 60-hour weeks and you burn out from that. But
Yeah.
if your team lives and dies by like they start at 8, really it's 8:15 because they're getting coffee and they got to have water cooler, da da da. Or they come in early and as soon as it's 4:59, they got their Nikes on and the car's already started. Like if you have a team that enjoys their work or they're just there for a paycheck. So
Mhm.
I think the team build is one. And the other piece, back to the corporate ladder, can't emphasize this enough, is being purposeful on engaging with the leadership group.
Mhm.
I don't
Mhm.
I don't care if you know they're an Eagles fan and the Eagles are in the playoffs and there's got to be something that interests them. And so
Mhm.
that your engagement with them is just not purely about work. I promise you the highest functioning C suites are ones that have a relationship a little bit more than just work getting done. They
Yeah.
understand the pains they go through and the trials and tribulations that happen outside of work. So that's why you want to be purposeful of getting those relationships, because then when it is time to expand and team, like, hey, Nate is why aren't we considering Nate?
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any kind of resources that you would recommend for someone looking to grow um, in that leadership role?
Um, Shameless plug, CIO Lifeline, wink, wink. Um, but no, I purposeful resources that dedicate to that. Man, it's what we're big on. Like our whole vCIO Global, I mean, yeah, you got to have a good help desk and good tools, but we're all about the growing and helping to build up. But it's a really good question. How? Because to me, all right. So, there's a couple things. Well, and I don't know how you purposefully go about this. So when I say you got to be able to read the room, I'm not aware of any read the room seminars.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
but but I think you have to just find a way into those into those settings and
Mhm.
observing.
Yeah.
Who's checking their phone? Who like I know that the CEO is a less is more. And if your answer goes beyond 2 minutes, you've lost him or her. You know?
Yeah.
I know the CFO geeks out on this stuff and wants all the detail in the world.
Hmm.
And the head of sales is afraid of technology, he still uses a flip phone. Think about the dynamics in that room and how you
Yeah.
would work that room on a particular topic. If you
Hmm.
got to be able to read the room. Being comfortable speaking in front of a group, and that's something you can do within your own team.
Hmm.
That's why I love the peer groups, because that puts you out there and you can be vulnerable and just talk to folks. Say, look, I'm just god awful when it comes to speaking.
Hmm.
I say 30 times. It feels like I did it twice, but I had someone in the room track that for me. So
Yeah.
when you have a presentation or you're going to do something, you want that trusted confidant there observing. And you got to be able to
Mhm.
take criticism. They're not here to hurt you, they're here to help you.
Yeah.
But if you can present yourself well and read the room, man, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
Uh, but if your company is in manufacturing and you know that there's some supply chain challenges that they're going through, right there's a course that now
Hmm.
those you can find. Basics of supply chain management. Like, you got to be able to speak the business language,
Yeah.
for the company you're in to get that credibility and inclusion that will come once you've demonstrated these traits.
Hmm. Yeah. I also wanted to ask a question that Jake had followed up on about expectations of job roles. Say we have a help desk person in the same title for a few years that wants to advance. I feel like the director only sees them as they were hired and not how they grew. So, how do you shift those expectations? And
Yeah, that's a tough one, especially with younger gen. Like, the days of I've been a accounting clerk for 20 years and I'm totally fine with that. That I feel like, and I've had to mentor and skill up folks that come in, they have aspirations of where they want to go, and then just because they did a particular set of tasks,
Mhm.
like, okay, ready for the next role. Or if they don't get promoted within 2 years, they're looking for another job. It's so easy to find another job these days. So this is a broader macro question. It's I think that younger gen likes that work life balance more than those
Mhm.
career aspirations. I think it's important to be flexible to demonstrate that. and have a purposeful meeting cadence with that person. And very early on, they're going to want to know, or I would assume, based on your question, like where. So, what is the growth trajectory with the company, with the organization? Like, they dance around the aspirations they may have for themselves, and they have to assess, is the company getting to a place where I can get there? I
Mhm.
mean, the easy answer, it's kind of a cop out in a way, is that, well, you're a help desk technician, but there's a level 1, level 2, level 3, which doesn't mean shit, except on paper there's a Roman numeral 2 next to their name, not a 1,
Mhm.
and they might get a little more pay out of it. But
Mhm.
what are their motivations? Is their motivations just to make money? Is their motivation to really progress in their career and get, so they're help desk technician? Do they want to be able to lead the entire team? Is that their career goals? You want to get ahead of that very early on and have a purposeful path for them to get there, which you can do and you are in control of.
Mhm.
Now, if you know for a fact, and I don't know anybody who has that crystal ball that says, well, we're only projected to be, you know, flat 3 years from now, and we're not going to be adding, that's not a s- aspiring or inspiring conversation. But
Mhm.
getting ahead of it, mapping out a career roadmap for them is important. But you also got to know that your boss believes in this concept also,
Mhm.
and it may land that, look, we need a help desk technician. We have a young team. I mean, yes, we have trajectories, but you know, there is a reality conversation sometimes.
Mhm.
This is, unless these people quit or go. I mean, yeah, and you can determine how you want to have that conversation. But I know employees appreciate honesty up front, and not,
Mhm.
and they'll know if they're being BS'd a little bit. Um, because if you are upfront with them, it's like, look, we just need this technician role, and there's really no career trajectory, at least not in the next 3 to 5 years. You're not
Mhm.
closing the door on it, but you're being real with that person. They may withdraw or not take the role. That's a gift, because
Mhm.
that's going to save you some heartache and agony later. If
Yeah.
you know,
I'm also curious about how to avoid, um, like Jake said, the director seeing them as they were hired. So let's say they've gone through some career growth and they have improved their um, trajectory within the company, and maybe they've been there for 3 years and they are doing more and taking on more responsibility. But
yep,
maybe leadership still sees them as an entry level technician that, is asking people to reboot their
yeah.
computer.
So yep, no, this is good. I find, so again, if you don't have regular meetings scheduled with your director, that's, I mean, that's a red flag, or that just simply can't happen. But it gives you an opportunity to raise that point. I want to, and come in the form of a question. I feel like, just to help us be better aligned and in tune with what should be prioritized, we should probably get some kind of meeting cadence together. What do you think? You know,
Mhm.
you're not coming with a mandate, or, you're coming in the form of a question. That tends to lower barriers a lot. And
Mhm.
that same concept holds true with reviews. What I hate, we do, again, companies have their structure and their process, but you're in control of your own destiny in a way with your director, with your boss. If it's the once a year annual review, stop that. You got to have a regular meeting cadence, quarterly at a minimum. I'm a big fan, especially if it's in your own department, having some kind of weekly touch in, or
Mhm.
every other week. But if it's every other week and one has to cancel, now it's going to be a full month before
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
think about what happens between now and then. But you're being articulate and purposeful about the work you've accomplished, and And think about some of these projects too, because there's a difference between completing a task and then with the big picture in mind. It's kind of like an asterisk add-on.
Mhm.
We need to modernize our help desk technology. That's a task. Anybody can go from, fresh desk to ConnectWise or whatever your fits the bill. But here are the benefits that come with this modernization. It's not just we're moving to the cloud. Now we have better workflow. How many
Mhm.
times, director, that we get requests for equipment? Um, we always ask for a 2-week lead time, and then we're told, "Hey, new person starting tomorrow. We need a laptop in 3 days." Everybody can relate to this, right? But in the act of modernizing your help desk, as this task example, you've reached out to HR.
Mhm.
The director didn't tell you this. You reached out to HR to review the onboarding process and
Mhm.
suggested a workflow or a email distribution group or something that helps HR not forget
Mhm.
when they're onboarding. I got to make sure you know. That's where I start to think you get out of that mindset of you're just help desk task taker from this director. Now, I don't know the director from Adam. I would hope that they are inclusive and want the team to grow and not just, if anybody's going to shine, it's going to be me, not you. I hope
Mhm.
it's not that situation. But once you start thinking more broadly than just the task and involving other business stakeholders when appropriate, light bulbs start to go off.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, Nate asked, what tips would you give to an introvert who eventually wants to become a CIO?
For an introvert,
Yeah.
yeah. So I would hope. Well, I don't know. I'm throwing tips out there. I'm not going to assume anything. Um, is this individual in group meetings with
Mhm.
just your internal team?
Yeah.
Um, because that tends to be the comfort zone.
Mhm.
But being purposeful about going around the table.
Mhm.
Hey, so you know what? Just part of our weekly check-in. What were you working on this week? And share some, you know, successes or where you, were where Janine was giving you some shit. Something to inject humor into it, but gives them a chance to speak in that
Mhm.
person's comfort zone. Um, Being purposeful about a project for this person to take on that will require other departments
Yeah.
to engage. And you
Mhm.
can be that mentor for that person. Or if you're the introvert, um, that's where you want to challenge yourself and take on projects that you do have to get involved with said stakeholders.
Mhm.
Now, going in cold into a room full of people, I don't recommend that at all. But
No.
I mean, you'll get there, but we're not going in the deep end of the pool here. I mean, that's being an introvert, that's a real thing.
Mhm.
And so how do you break through that? I think it is again the team engagement roundtable. Um, I like having team happy hours or some kind of
Mhm.
team
Mhm.
outside of work. But again, I'm talking about the team. That's the comfort zone. But then those projects that bring in other stakeholders in small numbers, and maybe it's just simply, hey, scheduling time with Janine just for the two of you to so she can walk you through the process and some of the
Mhm.
pain points that they're going through. Because you're the expert here. I mean, and you have some real value for this person and function, but see what you think. Just have,
Mhm.
you kind of crawl, walk, running. And
Yeah.
once those outside team members start to look at you as an asset, someone they can count on, someone they can go to, that's how you start. You just got to retrain these muscles. It's not going to happen overnight, but I promise you'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's something that I have struggled with a lot. I'm very introverted. I usually, I don't go out of my way to do public speaking things. And this specifically has been a really good tool in training that muscle where um, it's relatively low stakes. It's chatting with one person or a few people, and it gives me the opportunity to be able to build those muscles of public speaking, and also not just public speaking, but being able to hold a conversation and take different routes and different topics and ask follow-up questions and things like that. But it does start small, and that's important to start small rather than kind of starting with a massive presentation, which is what happened in my career. I worked at my first company for, I want to say, like 4 or 5 months, and then I had to make a presentation to the rest of the company about my job. It's
Yeah.
like, oh,
I,
I hate this.
I was deathly afraid to speak early in my career because I just felt like I would and it. And
Mhm.
now these days, it can be your iPhone or your Android on a tripod, and you're
Yeah,
recording yourself on a platform like, well, pick your
that's true.
platform,
Yeah,
and you're doing a podcast with yourself. No one sees it but you. No one.
yeah,
And you everybody has that trusted partner to say, "Hey, I need you to look at that and tell me, you know, oh, you look like you're a deer in headlights. You're monotone. You didn't crack a smile once. It looked like someone had a gun to your head because you were sweating like you just got out of the pool." Like, I mean, and you can critique yourself on that.
yeah,
Like I'm a golf is my favorite sport, um, and as I'm getting old, I'm 51, and as I get older, I body just doesn't move like it used to, and I have to work harder in strength training to get to what I could just roll out of bed and go and do, right? It's just how it is. So I went to a lesson and he's telling me what I'm doing wrong. And I hear what he's saying, but I'm like, well, that's what I'm doing. Like it didn't resonate. And until I saw myself on camera and I was like, holy shit. Like
uh-huh, yeah,
not only are you right, but I'm almost kind of like, sorry I suggested you didn't know what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah.
It's amazing what the camera can do, but you have the ability to do it just to yourself, no one else.
Mhm,
And
yeah,
you can get to a part where, okay, now I'm feeling comfortable with myself.
mhm,
Now let someone weigh in. um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think that Jake brought this up. Uh, he said improv and stand up made me go from introvert to extrovert. Improv is
Holy
great because
ah,
because it's super supportive and teaches you to be comfortable being silly. Stand up is great because it teaches you to be intentional and planned with your words. And then everyone bombs, and that's normal, and you get over it really quick.
oh my God, do I applaud that comment? When I was in college, back when my public speaking was bad, I did got a MC
Hmm.
with a local comedy club where I got to go up there
Yeah.
and um, bombed it. Bombed it for the first 5 minutes. Like I wanted to run. And then when I was I'm like, God, I suck at this. Like, how is this room not half cleared out? Then you get a couple chuckles, and
Yeah.
like it's yeah. So just what you said, that is great advice. And it's such
Mhm.
a low barrier entry to help to but it also means you gotta be able to have that kind of thick skin or be able to ingest that afterwards. Like, what did I
Yeah.
just do?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Last question, since we're coming up on time. Neil was wondering if you have any good books to suggest. I've been suggested Radical Candor, which I'm about halfway through. It's provided me with tons of insight into having tough conversations, things that will help me push myself and my team further by being direct in what I want exactly. But do you have any books that you would recommend?
There's a few specific to what you're referring to. I mean, the AI-driven leader is that's more typical of how we're um, of where I think IT in general is going, but that's not specific to what you're asking. I love the book Traction. I'm a fan of EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Um, but in terms of uh, like the five dysfunctions of team is a really good one. These are older school books, but I think if you're man, I just want to run upstairs now and grab the books that speak to leadership specifically because there's good ones out there that really do focus on the task minded. Any slip of time and budget is wrong. Like it helps you to think differently and rewire a little bit.
Mhm.
So if there is a vehicle for me to get that information back to you, Brittany, I can certainly do that.
Yeah. After the stream, I'll post a wrap up of everything. So you can feel free to drop the links in there to the books or just the names of the books or whatever. Um,
Holacracy is another good one. Yeah, there's a few that are, I think, really, really good.
okay, cool. Yeah, we'll definitely, there will definitely be a place for you to put all of those recommendations in there. Um, all right. Well, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate your time today. Sorry, we're a little bit over, but uh, I really think there were some great conversations, great questions. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. And then in a couple weeks, we are hosting our next IT Leadership Lab stream, where we're going to I believe we're sticking to the um, kind of executive gap. And so basically, how you can transition or translate tech into business value and
Great
talk to
topic.
executive leaders.
Great topic. That's the
Yeah, it
number
should
one
be.
barrier. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it should be a really good conversation. We're going to have Jason Abbott, our director of corporate IT here at Ninja, where he'll be talking about kind of how he translates those. But yeah, for today, that's all we've got. Thank you again, Tony, for your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody in the chat and all of the good discussions there. And we'll catch you on the next one.
All
All
right.
right,
Thanks
take
again.
care.
See
Bye.
ya.